come to order. It is good to be back here at the commission table this October 21st, this Monday evening at 6:05. Just as a reminder to our friends and colleagues in attendance this evening, the City of Raleigh Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission is an all-volunteer commission. Much like folks in the community, we too just simply care about doing what we can to advance improvements and investments in our public infrastructure, specifically our multimodal infrastructure, improving the safety of our streetscapes so that folks are getting around by scooter or bike or just walking, whatever it might be, other than a vehicle. Ideally, they can get around this city safely. And at the end of the day, we're just trying to create more options for folks to get around the city. So with that, we'll kick off introductions. I'm Nick Neptune, Chair of the Commission. We'll proceed to my left.
Joe Caruso, Vice Chair and Chair of the Policy Committee.
Alex Rittenberry in the Policy Committee.
Kari Barsness, Policy Committee.
Pierre Tong, Planning Committee.
Tammy Stern, Planning Committee.
William Smith, Outreach.
Celise Bravo Taylor, Planning Committee.
Colleagues and staff.
Will Shoemaker, staff.
Barbara Godwin, staff.
And if I'm not mistaken, Colonel Bob Edgerton is here on behalf of the Parks Greenway Advisory Board as our liaison to the City of Raleigh Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Commission. Thank you for being here. Let us proceed with a approval of the minutes. Do I have well, just assuming folks have had a chance to review the minutes from our last meeting, September 16th, which, as you take a quick look, I do want to note, and here comes Commissioner Alley right on time. Always good to see Commissioner Alley. I want to just make a special acknowledgement and a note of gratitude to Commissioner Caruso for stepping up in my absence last month to lead the commission meeting. Deeply appreciate that while I was out of town on some work-related business. But with that, do we have a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting? Commissioner Celise Bravo Taylor, a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Second from Commissioner Barsness. And all in favor? Any opposed? Hearing no objections, we stand approved with our minutes from our previous meeting. Up next, I'd like to make space for any public comment. Do we have anybody here to make public comment? I am not seeing anyone get up to make public comment, so I think that with that observation, we will proceed on past public comment. I want to thank, while we're on the note, Ms. Godwin for engaging with a resident who had reached out about potentially coming through to make comment this evening, but we realize, and again, courtesy of Ms. Godwin's guidance, that the conversation the resident was looking to have was better suited for outreach committee. And so I followed up with, in addition to Mr. Thomas, followed up with the resident to encourage her to attend our November outreach committee meeting. So looking forward to having her there. So thank you, Ms. Godwin, for that. We do have a presentation this evening. I think we're all very excited. Come on down, my friend. It's good to see you. I tell you what, I feel like we have been looking forward to this for about a year and a half. A year and a half. I mean, when we first announced it, holy moly, the kids are coming out the woodwork talking about this e-bike rebate program. My friend, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I've also been looking forward to it for about 2 years. I've been with this program since we got it off the ground. So it's exciting to see it come to fruition. My name is Mason Chambly. I'm with the City of Raleigh's Transit Division in a program called Commute Smart Raleigh. Just briefly, we focus on non-car travel or non-single occupant vehicle travel, encouraging folks to get into other modes, whether that is walking, taking the bus, or bicycling. And so we are currently the administrators of this program. I'm going to run through kind of the background, why this program we feel is important, and then finally how this program is going to work. And at the end, we'll take some questions. So first, I just want to level set with folks. I'm sure folks here are aware of what an e-bike is, but for anyone out there in the audience listening, just kind of to give people background, it is what it sounds like. It's an electric bicycle that has a motor to assist the rider. They are classified further based on their level of motor assistance and can either help the rider pedal or be powered by a motor. So the three classes, kind of briefly to run through, are pedal assist, which turns off when the bike reaches 20 miles an hour. This tends to be the most common and well-recognized model. or class. The second one is the pedal assist mode up to 20 miles an hour, and a motor-only powered mode, so that way it can throttle. It can only go up to 20 miles an hour, but it has the ability to throttle a little bit if someone's not able to pedal. And then finally, there's the pedal assist for class 3, which is similar to class 1, but this assistance turns off when the bike hits 28 miles an hour, so it's a little faster, a little more high-powered. It tends to be for those more advanced users. And then finally, there are other kinds of variations on the e-bikes. We have cargo-style e-bikes. Those have the capacity to carry large loads. Can be used as a family vehicle or to carry groceries. For example, you may see someone that has, I'm sure for a lot of folks here are aware of Mary Sales, she has one where you can carry children on the front of it. So they're very helpful, very useful to get around and achieve daily activities. And that kind of brings us into why we are operating this program and launching it. So typically, as estimated, an e-bike can replace a trip that you need to make under 10 miles, which may sound like a large distance, but kind of when you have that e-bike and you have secure infrastructure to navigate, it's not that far. For folks who are cyclists and may bike into work, usually it's 5 miles on a standard bike. So this almost doubles the ability that someone would have. And then I also provided some context to see how many folks or how many trips could be offset with an e-bike in the Wake County. And this is Wake County information because the census doesn't boil down to Raleigh level data, but I would assume those numbers would lean towards even shorter distances. But almost half of the trips in Wake County are under 3 miles. If we go up to 5 miles, that's a little over 60% of the trips. And then all the way up to about 10 miles or less, which again is what an e-bike looks to replace, almost 80% of trips in Wake County are less than 10 miles. So there's a lot of folks and a lot of ability for, do you have a question, ma'am?
I did. I just want to make sure I understood that stat. You're telling me that 80% of trips within Wake County, I guess regardless of if they're a resident or not, is less than 10 miles?
Yeah, so whether someone's going from home to work or to the school or to wherever, most trips are less than 10 miles in distance. And right now, most people drive to meet those needs. Additionally, other reasons why we're pursuing this, because it is really cheap when compared to owning a car. So if you look at a per 15,000 mile basis, it costs about $12,000 per 15,000 miles to own a car, and that factors in fuel, maintenance, insurance, all these other costs. And so that does add up. On the flip side, the annual cost of electricity, if you were to take that e-bike 15,000 miles, is about $15 charging it home. So if you're replacing a car with an e-bike, I mean, it's $12,000 roughly of savings. And that can mean a huge difference for folks. I mean, it would make a huge difference for most Americans. And so that's why it's really important from that financial perspective. And then finally, e-bikes have been shown to increase cycling accessibility and physical activity for seniors and people with disabilities. And that's because it offers support to where those folks may need just a little bit of extra support to access things. It offers that with that electric assist motor. And then I will just kind of highlight some of the goals that we have internally here at the city for this program. First is for that environmental climate impact. One of our top goals is to reduce vehicle miles traveled. When I say vehicle miles, I'm meaning single occupant vehicles or people driving in cars, and to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and improving air quality. The transportation sector, personal cars are one of the biggest contributors of CO2 gas in the country, and finding ways to offset that is vital and important, not only for the larger climate impacts, but also just community health here in the city. And then finally, reducing those vehicle miles can help lessen the strain on our infrastructure, as well as make it easier for folks who need to take the bus or drive for whatever reason, makes it a little less congested. Additionally, supporting the local e-bike market, we really hope that is a huge outcome. That was one of the later additions to program goals, and we discovered that through talking with peer cities like Denver and Tampa, particularly Denver, who saw a noticeable impact on the e-bike market. For anyone who's familiar with e-bikes, Rad Power is a very popular model of e-bikes. They traditionally are online only, but they saw such a huge increase in demand in e-bikes in Denver that Rad Power actually opened a brick and mortar location in Denver to meet that demand, as well as other locations opening up, expanding operations. And so while we aren't pumping in as much money right now as Denver, we do expect a pretty significant impact to the local e-bike market. And right now, I think we have 6 or 7 bike shops that have committed to participate. And then finally, data. So this is the first year we're operating kind of like a pilot in the sense of we're going to be doing a lot to gather as much data as we can on who's applying, those usage patterns and behaviors, the types of trips people are making or replacing, and the kind of the quality of life improvement that these have offered on the folks who end up receiving one of these bikes. Not only to understand how we need to build and manage this program going forward, but additionally to see if there's any maybe barriers in the infrastructure that we currently aren't aware of for folks to be able to transition to e-bikes. So a little bit about the funding. This is currently being funded through a grant the city received from the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant. That was awarded from the Department of Energy. We received a total of $450,000 in change from them, and that was a formula grant, so it was non-competitive. We received that money based on our size as a city, and then $215,000 of that was set aside to finance this program in its first year. A portion of that money, about $13,000, was set aside to hire a third-party vendor who has built out the entire back-end application process and system, and I'll get into in a little bit about why that was important and needed. But the remainder of the funds has been set aside to actually, provide money towards vouchers and get bikes in the hands of folks. And then again, just touching back on the voluntary surveying. So they'll be conducting that before, during, and post the application process. This is additionally collecting volunteer e-bike usage data, and that'll be analyzed to help support future funding opportunities. And I want to mention that during the program funding because we are actually partnering with UNC Chapel Hill, some professors over there. They have actually offered to do this at no cost to the city because they are really interested in this and how this impacts folks. So we are going to be getting some really good study data from this program as well once they're through their work. So to get into the model and actually how this is going to operate, so recipients are going to be awarded a voucher and they'll receive that as a point of sale rebate, and that to be redeemed at a participating bike shop. So what that means in a sense is you're getting a gift card for either $500 or $1,500, and you'll be able to take it to a bike shop and get that immediate discount. So the consumer or the applicant isn't having to outlay any funds at the beginning of the process, which goes a long way in terms of people being able to participate and helping us meet our equity goals. So there are 2 categories of vouchers. One is a $500 voucher that's open to all permanent Raleigh residents who are 18 years and older, so it's our broadest category. Really, anyone who's an adult and lives within the city of Raleigh limits is able to apply to receive one of these vouchers. The other vouchers are $1,500 one, and that's been income adjusted with the goal of targeting folks who are at or below 80% of the area median income. Currently, for the city of Raleigh, that income level for a household of one at 80% AMI is about $68,000. So that would cover a wide range of folks here in the city. And the goal with having this income adjusted value, particularly at $1,500, is to do what we can to really reduce the burden of cost for folks who need an e-bike the most, to incentivize folks who probably weren't going to buy an e-bike anyway because of the cost to make that choice. Folks who apply and get that $500 voucher, we're hoping that's enough of incentive to where maybe they were on the fence about getting one, but that $500 will push them over and they'll get one and then use it. But again, that $1,500 voucher is really to incentivize folks at the lower end of the income threshold or spectrum to make that commitment, to make that purchase. And I will also say about this $1,500 voucher, compared with other municipalities and cities in the country, we are one of 3 cities that offer this amount, and it is the highest amount offered by city governments. So that means we are competing with cities like Boston and Washington, D.C. on how much we are giving folks to get an e-bike, which I think is awesome. I think it's incredible. And hopefully this will see this play out in terms of a lot of folks getting them. And again, these are broken out. We have 150 vouchers, 75 for each category. This, I will be honest, we're playing in a pilot program this first year. So it may seem like they're inequitably distributed, but we have weighted a lot of money towards that income adjusted amount. And then in terms of how someone will receive a voucher, It'll be a random selection process, and all qualifying applications, when someone goes, will be able to choose if they're applying for a standard or income adjusted. If an applicant is or receives this, they'll be notified via email. They can go to any participating bike shop within the city of Raleigh that is participating and redeem it there. The only restrictions that we have are no online or third-party purchases, and that's one, we are hoping to establish a relationship between that end customer and the bike shop. One, I don't want someone coming to me and calling me up and say, my bike's broken, can you fix it? No, I can't. And secondly, is to ensure that the models that people are getting are safe, inspected, and are ready to go. Because one of the major concerns with e-bikes are concerns and issues around batteries. And any of the news you typically receive around, e-bike battery having an issue or a malfunction, are bikes or e-bikes bought on the second market, refurbished at home by someone and being bought off Craigslist. So by working with licensed, reputable bike shops, we're avoiding that. They all have to have UL certified batteries on those bikes. And so that makes it just really safe for the end user, and that they're getting something that they know is going to work. The application is going to open next Monday, October 28th, and that will last all the way through Sunday, November 10th. And the reason we chose a 2-week window was, again, to maximize the equity of this. Again, speaking with peer cities like Denver, who has a first-come, first-served model. Usually within about 30 minutes of opening the application, the server crashes, and they are fully out of vouchers. Now, again, that doesn't work well for someone who has a job. They can't be on the computer at a specific time and waiting in line. And so other cities who have had this kind of window period have noticed that a lot more folks from a low-income level or communities of color are able to apply because of this. And so we have this 2-week window to really try to get in as many folks as possible. It allows people time to contact us, ask us questions. There are options for people to submit a paper application if they so desire, and that just gives a little extra window for folks to do that. And finally, having this window period means that we're going to be able to give away all of the money possible. So again, going back to Denver, who has a really great program, but this is an issue they run into, that they have all these people apply, but people don't end up redeeming the voucher. And since they don't know who the 101st person in line was, they have to reopen the process again and go through this whole thing to give that money out again. With this, if someone doesn't redeem their voucher, and we're giving folks 60 calendar days to make that redemption, per the program guidelines, they agree to forfeit that, and we will just go draw someone else. And we'll continue that process until every voucher is given away. Because the number one goal of this program is to get people using e-bikes in the community, and that is to just keep doing it until everyone or every voucher has been redeemed. And that is my brief presentation. I will take any and all questions.
Well, my friend, first and foremost, thank you so much for being here this evening to share with us this very exciting update on this e-bike rebate program. I know many of us have been looking forward to it, and it's just great to see it get off the ground. I'd like to open the floor. Commissioner Barces.
How did you guys decide to take the pot of money that you had and divide it equally 75 between those low income and those just any City of Raleigh resident? And where I'm going with this is, are you trying to figure out where the interest is? Because I don't know how much e-bikes are. I think they're a little expensive, but in a means-sensitive program, I would think of having like a sliding scale, and then allocate it that way, with the lowest income first up. But again, I know this is a pilot, so it allows you to kind of test things. So maybe that's where you were looking, just to, as a means to also collect additional data.
Yeah, so I'll kind of start back at the very beginning of how we structured this. Mm-hmm. Originally, we were going to price our vouchers at $1,200. That's the pretty standard kind of upper end voucher limit. Mm-hmm. We were going to go off that model, trying to model as many peer cities as possible. Mm-hmm. However, internal discussions kind of had us reevaluate what we wanted to do and the objective of this, and that was to try to cover as much of the cost of an e-bike as possible. A pretty decent lower end model of an e-bike will run you about $1,200, $1,300. So this $1,500 should allow someone to really make that full purchase, maybe something a little bit better. Additionally, the vouchers will allow someone, if they don't have a lock or a helmet or tools, if there's any money left over, they can use that to go towards supporting that purchase as well. How we landed on dividing it equally, again, to your point, it's a pilot program. We aren't sure where the demand's going to lie. There could be a lot of people who are above that income level that are applying, and they're highly demanding it, and there may not be a lot of people on that income adjusted that are applying for it. We really don't know the demand, and so it seemed at the time the best way to divide that, and then taking the data in to reevaluate, see where it is. Internally, I know we have had discussions about if more money was to come up in this immediate cycle, we would probably pour that into the income adjusted voucher.
Right.
We are currently actively applying for grants right now to see if we can just throw a little extra money in there. But yes, to your point, not arbitrary, because a lot of other cities have divided it equally in terms of number of vouchers, but it gives us a balance point to judge it later on.
And just a quick follow-up. How did you decide on 80% of Raleigh's median income instead of, say, 100? I'm just curious. Since I deal in policy, I know we pick a number because we have to, but it is based obviously on some research and information, so I'm curious what your thinking was.
Yeah, so looking at that number just on the board, it seems high, $68,000. But our goal with that was to try to have it high enough to where we had folks apply for it who would use it. If we went too low, there was the fear that maybe folks felt even with the voucher they couldn't cover it, so we wanted to leave a little wiggle room at the top. Again, that is something we're going to be looking at and evaluating and considering dropping it maybe lower to 70, 60% AMI, depending on kind of the demand and where we see most of the applications come from. I will say that it also aligns with a lot of other peer cities who set it at 80% AMI. And our model is based pretty closely to the Denver model, which is what I call it, because they have had such a massive success. We didn't want to try to reinvent the wheel out of the gate, and so we modeled it off a program that has done really well, and that was one of the threshold levels they set.
Right. Yeah, no, exactly. That's why I was asking, because it's always interesting to see what our peers are doing. Just, one other option, again, it totally depends on where the interest is, but you could have that $1,500 voucher for the lower income, and then you could do like a middle tier as well. Again, just throwing out ideas even without the data. So obviously it makes sense to get the data, but I appreciate the conversation because it's really helpful to understand how the program is going to work and what positive benefits will come from it. So thank you.
Yeah, no.
Ms. Alley?
I had two questions. First, I think this is a great idea and a great technology. I'm glad to see that we have an equity lens on it. So my first question was about outreach and education and how we are doing that in an equitable lens. And then my second question was about the peer cities that we're modeling after, what their data has shown in terms of trip replacement, mode shift, if it has helped people not buy cars, et cetera, or if it is taken away from transit, et cetera. So those are my two questions.
Happy to answer those. So for the first one, in terms of equity outreach, my program works pretty hand in hand, usually with our Southeast Raleigh Promise organization, who works heavily in our Southeast Raleigh community. NC State, we have done a lot reaching out to them, to the college student populations. We work heavily with the U.S. Committee for Refugees and Immigrants, and we've worked with them in promoting this. Additionally, Raleigh Transit Authority, who I've presented to, has a lot of connections throughout the community as well, and they've done a lot of promotion. And then finally, I will say there's been a ton of, to Nick's point earlier, organic interest in this program. I've been, since City Council, since Council Member Melton first asked if we could do this 2 years ago, I get a couple emails a week from people in the city, all over the city, all over Wake County, asking about interest in this. And so there is that organic we've been blessed to have. But again, one of our target areas has been Southeast Raleigh, hence why we work with Southeast Raleigh Promise a lot. They are close to downtown. They would have some of that existing infrastructure already to be able to use e-bikes. But again, as we expand this program, hopefully in the future, we'll be able to expand that. One of our other goals is to kind of reach into the Method Park community as well, because they also have good e-bike infrastructure kind of as it exists. Really all those communities within the Beltline, in theory, would have good infrastructure connection. So we've been trying to piecemeal that around as well.
Yeah, I think just that tying into the education, you're probably way ahead of me on this. It's such a generous voucher that but e-bikes seem real fancy, right? And so you might not understand, like, not only is that a generous voucher, it's basically a free e-bike, right? And so, $500 optional dollars is a lot of optional dollars. So, but zero is great. Like, that might really helping people understand this is basically a free e-bike program. Seems like it might broaden our pool.
Yes. Sorry, I missed the education portion. Yeah, so we've been pushing out to folks that if you qualify for the $1,500 amount, it can offset almost the entire cost of an e-bike. And we say almost entire cost. One of the things I do want to mention is per state law, the voucher isn't able to offset taxes. So someone will still have to cover the difference in tax. And so we've been trying to identify ways, if there's partner communities who could assist folks maybe in covering that tax amount, some nonprofits. So far, we haven't had any success. Nonprofits are always strapped for cash. But that is one thing we also have been working to educate and have it within some of our guidelines on the program, that there will be some tax at the end of the purchase that you will be responsible for paying. And so I've been trying to highlight folks for that. But to the other education point, Oaks and Spokes, so working with Jared Harbour, who's the executive director over there, they are putting together some educational materials about e-bikes as well, that they're going to be pushing out to their constituents and the community abroad to educate people what e-bikes are. And then finally, I will say one of the important things that I focused on within this program is leaning heavily on our bike shop partners. I really want to foster that community and grow them. And so we're encouraging folks that as they, get into this, to call their bike shops, talk with them. If you have any questions about, getting into an e-bike, to call one of the bike shops you're interested in, visit them. I've had all these conversations with the bike shops. They're all really excited about having that. So they've got some of their entry-level, learner-level information ready to go for folks who walk in and be like, I've never seen an e-bike, but I want one. And so they've been preparing to handle folks like that.
Great, thanks.
And
then
then
my
you get a
second
second
question was about data from the other peer communities that you're modeling after, and whether we've seen anything promising about mode shift or replacing cars, things like that.
So I don't have that data on me right now, so I'm not going to quote hard numbers. I don't want to say anything wrong, but they have seen a lot of positive mode shift from folks.
Great.
Again, that's self-reported data, so we take that with some grain of salt. People maybe saying they used it more than they did, just so they don't feel guilty. But we consider that data fairly reliable, and they have seen a large mode shift. I think Denver's program, when they asked people how many car trips a week did you replace with an e-bike, it was 3 to 4, which is a huge number if you consider someone's maybe driving 5 times a week if they, have a 9-to-5 job they have to commute to, or really any kind of job. So that is a pretty good number. I will say with the UNC study, one of the things they're looking to get off the ground is if folks volunteer into it, to download an app onto their phones. That way they could, voluntarily report anonymous usage data. And UNC is looking at ways to do that and to reimburse folks if they choose to participate. So we are looking to get fairly accurate data about rideshare as well. But just to simply answer that question, yes, a lot of peer cities have seen, at least in their opinion, in my opinion, really good data about trip replacement.
Awesome. I had one final comment, thinking about educating and outreach, and a possible partner organization is Wheels for Hope. Do you know them? They
I'm not aware.
They do cars. They for folks that are in need, that need transportation for a job, et cetera. They refurbish cars and give them away, I think, pretty much for free. I don't know if they are just in Wake County or if they're a regional organization, but it occurs to me that that's certainly not going to be an option for everyone. But if we wanted to hit a real need to replace a car, that might be a good, at least outreach organization partner.
Thank you for sharing. I made note of it. Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Oh, sorry.
I think we had Mr. Tong.
Sorry,
And
I didn't
Commissioner,
mean to jump in.
And then I think Commissioner Smith, I think you had a question? Yeah.
I really appreciate the very thoughtful presentation, and I'm really excited about this program. But I had at least one negative question. I didn't hear anything about crash data. Can you talk a little bit about that? I'm particularly interested in what's happening in Denver. Are they noticing these bikes being involved in crashes?
So I wouldn't be able to answer that directly. I'm not aware of kind of if crash data, and by crash data, I guess clarifying cyclist and vehicle crash, or just any kind of incidents with e-bikes.
Anything that's been reported, I guess, is what I'm talking about, where somebody's been injured, where someone has struck a pedestrian or another bicyclist in an e-bike.
Mm-hmm. So I will say I don't have any of that data. I'm not aware of Denver reporting that. If there's been any increases in that, really the only thing I'm aware of are anecdotal stories that you may see in the news. And those tend to be of people who have jailbroke their e-bikes and have basically
Say that again?
jailbroke.
Jailbroke?
It's like they make them fast.
Make it over 20 miles.
So basically you remove the
Yeah,
governor
I've heard
off
of
the
that, yeah.
e-bike, and then you
I've not
can.
heard that term. Yeah.
So used to you'd be able to jailbreak an iPhone and you could reprogram it how you want, and so
Okay.
they have modified e-bikes, basically removed the governors on them that prevent them from exceeding certain speed limits. And some of them are able to get theirs up to 50, 60 miles an hour. And
Oh
so
my
it's when you see
gosh.
people using those types of
Motorcycle.
models and then trying to get on a road like Capitol and integrating that traffic where you see more of the well-reported incidences.
So are you, as a part of a pilot project, are you talking about tracking, after the purchase of these bikes, what happens to them? How many miles they go, where they go, how many of them break down, how much it costs to fix them, how many people or other things they hit? That kind of data, is that something that's going to get collected, or are we just going to guess?
So we're going to be doing a couple follow-up surveys with folks, as well as the UNC study, who's going to ask a little more deeper questions. If folks are willing to participate in the live ride tracking, they'll be able to collect that data as well. Again, we can't force anyone to share their all-the-time ride information. Folks voluntarily choose to submit anonymous data. That's an option for them, but we're going to be doing a lot of surveying and following up, asking folks both hard questions in terms of how many car trips did you estimate this replaced, how many on average miles, or did you use this e-bike in a day or a week? Did you feel this accomplished the goal that we had set out, improve quality of life? What barriers did you still have in using this e-bike, and what can we do to improve either program administration or infrastructure, like heading forward? And so we're going to try to collect as much data from folks as possible, so that we kind of have an idea where we stand in the community and how to have this program operate in the long term.
Is this something that you're using Denver as a model for?
In terms of the surveying?
Yeah.
So most cities who operate this do some surveying of some kind. Denver, Tampa, Portland, Maine, they've all kind of done this. And additionally, another resource that we use is Portland State University actually has a database of e-bike rebate programs, and they've actually published a few studies on the impacts of e-bikes that we've been able to use as well.
But you haven't been able to use any data from Denver, like crash data or anything like that?
Not for crash data, only trip replacement data.
Thank you.
Ms. Barsness.
Yeah, one question, one comment. Are there any other cities in North Carolina that have a rebate program?
So the only other city that has, or two other cities, I will say, so Durham had a temporary pilot one called the Bully Bike Program.
Okay.
That one was very targeted to blue-collar frontline service sector workers. They loaned out 500 or so e-bikes, I believe on a 6-month basis, used that to collect data, and then the city of Durham recollected those bikes, so that wasn't something they would continue to keep long-term. These bikes, people, once they get it, that's theirs forever. And then Charlotte also has a limited e-bike rebate program, but theirs operates targeting a specific neighborhood and community, providing rebates for folks, but it's not open to the city. It's just really open to one specific community that they're really trying to get to mode shift.
Okay, and then my comment was about paying for sales tax. I assume it's just sales tax that would be charged?
Yes.
Okay. I just wondering if there's, because nonprofits usually don't have extra money for things like that, but there could be a foundation that has a specific interest in, increasing whether it's bike safety or reducing our carbon footprint. It could fit in a number of boxes. They potentially might be interested in supporting that as well. So just another thought.
Yeah, it's one of the things we're continuing to see if we can get support, because we know that'll be a barrier for some folks, and we want to alleviate that as much as possible. Hopefully, after the program, we see how much of a barrier it is or for what percentage of people that's a barrier, and so we know really the extent of that problem.
Yep.
Mr. Caruso.
Thank you. So I just had a question kind of about the kind of sustainability of funding for the program. And obviously a major caveat that not to kind of forecast the trials and tribulations of the federal budget, but like, how is kind of staff thinking about that now, and kind of what, I love the idea that you kind of going after a DOE grant, which is, kind of sort of adjacent to a lot of the places we would normally see funding coming from, but like, are there, is that particular program, is there a sunset on that? Is it part of like the infrastructure bill, or related to that, or is there kind of identified grant opportunities within DOT or other programs, or kind of how does staff think about kind of funding? Like you mentioned, I think everyone assumes that there will be a large amount of interest this coming year, and I think everyone would like to see this not be a one and done. So, how is staff kind of thinking about that for the medium term at least?
So, yeah, I'll kind of broadly answer the sustainability of the program question. So the DOE grant that we received was a one-time funding, so we're not eligible to get that again. So we have been looking at other sustainable models, additional grant funding. Budget season is coming up, and so our division has looked at feasibility models if additional money could be put into the recurring budget. That goes more towards council decisions, but we have been modeling, a sustainable amount that could be proposed to potentially add. And then I will say at the federal level, we're always investigating grants. When you get into looking at federal grants, there's always new ones being put out, so we're always trying to be on the lookout for those. But there are some nonprofit private grants that we've been looking at. For example, the Bloomberg Foundation has a strong investment in sustainability and transportation. So we are currently looking at the ability to pursue some Bloomberg grants to provide a little extra funding for this program as well. But I will say that is one of the larger challenges that we have is sustainable funding. Going back to peer cities, Denver has a climate tax, similar to, for folks aware of the Wake Transit tax, they have a climate tax that's a percentage of sales tax that goes towards funding climate-related projects in the city. So I think they put about $1 million towards their e-bike program a year because that tax is generating so much revenue. The city of Tampa uses a portion of parking revenues to fund their program. So there are plenty of creative ways to do that, and we're trying to figure out what is the most feasible and what we think is most able to kind of fit within current city operations.
Thank you. Any further question or comment from the commission?
Thanks for coming out, Mason. Appreciate it. Just one quick question I had regarding restrictions. I'm curious to know, like, I'm sure you can't put everything in a slide. I know that all too well. So I'm just curious to know, like, who isn't eligible to apply? Like City of Raleigh staff, for example, or, I mean, and then if people leave a month after they get a voucher and have redeemed it, is that just like too bad, so sad? Or are we, you know, I mean, is there a way, any kind of restrictions you can put into place? Must reside in county for, or city for 6 months, you know, 12 months, et cetera. Just kind of curious. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'll go to the City of Raleigh employee question first, because that is something we discussed early on. City of Raleigh employees are not eligible to apply for this program. Discussing with folks within the city, it would be considered per state law an improper benefit. We are looking at ways maybe that could be overcome in the future, but at least for this first round, we didn't see a way to quickly overcome that. In terms of other restrictions, the only people really aren't eligible to apply are the folks that don't live within the city. Now, that being said, if someone gets a voucher, redeems it, and they 6 months later move outside the city of Raleigh, that is a short sight, not short sight. That is one area we have realized may be a problem, but again, for this program, we're trying to get e-bikes out there into the community, and if someone is still using that e-bike, and if it's in Wake County, that's still going to impact us here at the city of Raleigh in terms of traffic flow, hopefully. But I think to your point, it's difficult to keep tracking folks, 6 months, 1 year, 2, 3 years after they've received this, and they're probably not as incentivized to report back if they've moved out or they feel like they've violated program rules. So to answer your question, no, we don't have any way of ensuring that they remain within the county or within the city. You're welcome.
Sally?
A related question about resale. Do you have any restrictions on resale, or will that, if you can't, I can understand as a pilot, that might be too complicated, but maybe it's something you could track?
Yeah, so we're definitely going to ask and track that information. We do have in our guidelines that we encourage folks and ask them to hold on to the bike for at least a year. Now, again, we can't really, per how we've come to understand private property laws, once someone buys that, we can't tell them to not sell that. It's their property in theory to do what they want with. But again, I think to the point earlier, if someone buys that and they turn around and sell it to their neighbor, ideally someone in the community is still using an e-bike, and that accomplishes the goal, and that's the positive model I've chosen to take. But we are going to ask folks that follow-up information. Again, going back to other peer cities, they haven't really noticed a lot of people turning around and selling the e-bike. I mean, in theory, people who are really into it and want one probably will continue to use it, is our hope. But we are going to see kind of what that long-term output is. And then one of the pieces of information we track with each purchase is serial number. So if someone does lose their e-bike or it's stolen, they'll at least have that information recorded and reported, and we can kind of follow up later to see.
Thank you. Any further comment or question from the commission? Hearing none, seeing none, many thanks. We're very excited to see this program get off the ground. Oh, wait, actually, quick question for you. Did I miss a website where all this information is available? And again, we have folks reaching out to us. We want to make sure we get the word out. And, this application period is what's that, next week?
Next week, yes. So there is a website. If you go to RaleighNC.gov and type in e-bikes, it's going to be the first website you find. If you just go into the internet and type in Raleigh e-bikes, it'll also be the first website you find. So just type it in, Google it. We've gotten so many hits. I think since we announced the actual launch date in August, we've seen 150% increase in foot traffic, organic traffic to that website. So RaleighNC.gov, search term e-bike, that'll lead you right to that page.
Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Everything awesome.
Well, moving right along after that excellent presentation, we will proceed with the chair's report. And I'll tell you what, as it happens, given that I was involved with so much travel this last month and a half, I would like to cede my time with the chair's report to commend and create space for Commissioner William Smith to speak about what I thought was a very successful program and event. I think it was the 60th anniversary of the White Cane Day just celebration. I mean, I did have a chance to attend and participate. I saw Commissioner Thomas, I think, was in attendance, and had many members of Raleigh transportation staff, including Ms. Godwin. Mr. Shoemaker, I'm not sure if I saw you there, but I do know I saw, I believe Mr. Driscoll, I believe, was out there. The Director of Transportation, Paul Callum, was out there. Quite a few folks were there. But if, Commissioner Smith, if you wouldn't mind just taking a minute or two to share with us.
Thank you, Commissioner Neptune, Chairman. I appreciate it. So we had White Cane Day on October 15th on Tuesday. At 9 a.m. we met at Art Space, and we walked up Wilmington Street to the legislature, and we met in front of the legislature, and Secretary of State Marshall presented the governor's proclamation on his behalf. Senator Grafstein was there. There were about 70 so people in attendance, which was a really good turnout. And I did speak with Commissioner Thomas. I don't know if anyone else managed to attend, but there were a lot of folks, so it was hard. Ms. Godwin was there, and a host of other people from the city of Raleigh. This was the first time that these two organizations that represent blind and low vision people in this area have worked together ever, and they've coexisted for about 30 years. So this was a real special event for the blind and low vision community because of that. And personally, I met a lot of people through this event, and hope to keep those conversations going and those relationships strong and active. It was a great event. It was beautiful weather, and I really, I guess the most heartwarming thing about the whole event for me personally was how the city turned out. Christina Bowman, the ADA coordinator for the city, really hit a home run for us, and RPD was there in force and very helpful and very cooperative and happy to be there, and it was just heartwarming to see the city come out, all the folks from transportation who were there, who walked down, and in particular I wanted to mention I think it's the intersection of Wilmington and Hargett. Was the only intersection on the route that did not have accessible pedestrian signals. And about a month and a half ago, I asked if the city could do that so that we could take that route and not only use it, but also say, look what the city did, And H.P. Humphreys went out of his way to make things happen for us, and Jed Nippenegger, and they did it. And my understanding is, because of its age, it was not an easy task. So the city worked really hard to make us feel important on this day, and I really appreciate it. And I would actually like to ask Ms. Godwin to talk a little bit about her experience too, since.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Yeah, it was absolutely a wonderful event, and just so enjoyed getting to meet people and just talk to different folks on our stroll to the legislative building. My favorite part was seeing all the students that were there from the Governor Moorhead School, and just getting to do that walk with them and learn more about their experiences. So thank you for your words, and thank you so much for having folks from the city there to join you.
Couldn't have done it without you.
Thank you, Ms. Godwin, and again, thank you, Commissioner Smith, for your leadership in organizing such a great event. Up next, we have Planning Committee, but I see no pending items.
Yeah, we didn't meet in September because we don't have any pending items.
Heard. Thank you, Commissioner Tong. Up next, Policy Committee with a few pending items.
Yeah, the Policy Committee didn't meet this month, but we, due to some scheduling changes, we now have a new meeting date, which is going to be the fourth Tuesday at 4 p.m. Upstairs. So anybody interested outside of the normal members is welcome to join us.
Thank you, Mr. Caruso. Up next, we have Outreach Committee, and I believe that is Commissioner Thomas. So on his behalf, I'll just announce that there are no pending items for outreach. Up next, we have staff reports.
Good evening, everyone. I do have a couple of updates. First, I'll acknowledge the staff memo in your agenda packet that has several updates just regarding our bike and pedestrian plan and some other events going on and projects and planning efforts. I'll start off with our transportation and treats event that's happening next week on Wednesday, October 30th at the Marsh Creek Community Center. From 4 to 7. Come join the transportation department. We'll have representation from all of our divisions and service areas there to meet with folks and just have conversations about concerns and priorities from the transportation perspective from our community. A couple of other updates. So at the October 1st City Council meeting, Council did approve implementation of protected bike lanes along Brookside Drive with vertical elements to be added in as well along that corridor, and that's between Glasscock Street and Frank Street. So staff has notified residents along the corridor and 2 blocks back from the corridor of this council approval, and we'll be working to get that striping work done this fall with plans to go back and add a vertical element in the winter and spring of 2025. And then my final update is some really exciting news on Glenwood South. Our very own Hannah Dos Santos, who is in the back corner there, is leading upgrades on our Glenwood South scooter corrals. So if you've been down Glenwood South over the last 4 or 5 days, you've seen some really vibrant, amazing paint and artwork going in where our corrals exist currently. So those updates are happening over the next couple weeks, and we're very excited about those and hope they help improve scooter parking behavior.
Can I make a comment here? As a blind person and a person who represents the blind community, thank you. Getting those scooters into a place where they're not willy-nilly around the sidewalks is such a big help. And I have, personal friends who've been injured, from that. So this is a big thing.
Yeah, and thank you, Mr. Smith. Certainly all the credit goes to Hannah. So we're very excited for these upgrades and looking forward to expanding those across other parts of downtown. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Godwin. We will now proceed with general board comment, and I'll tell you what, I actually had a question and a bit of a prompt. If I'm not mistaken, I believe last month in September, we had a celebration of the Crabtree West Connector. And I think that our own Commissioners Bravo Taylor and I think Commissioner Thomas were involved in organizing said celebration. I was not able to attend, but I would love to create space for Commissioner Bravo Taylor to maybe share with us just a couple words on the celebration.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Goodwin and I were out there along with our sort of Greenway counterparts, Beverly Clark and Jeff Havenmeyer, and a bunch of other, and Mary Jo stopped by. It was a really great event. It was great to get everybody out there, and we're going to continue trying to host events where we bring people onto the Greenway for group rides and just like Greenway conversations and awareness. So we'll let you know if other events are organized.
Thank you, Commissioner Bravo Taylor, and thank you, Commissioner Goodwin, for participating and attending and celebrating our greenways. With that, any other comment, question from the commission? Oh, Commissioner Caruso.
Thank you. I just wanted to make kind of just a comment and sort of an observation that kind of 2 things together that I've been thinking about. One is, as Ms. Godwin mentioned, the Brookside Drive project is moving forward, and I know many members of this commission have spent a lot of time and effort kind of trying to lobby members of the public and council to kind of reevaluate that project and kind of move away from adding parking that frankly no one was really asking for, and move to, move towards kind of our goals and the bike plan and stuff like that. And, I just wanted to kind of, so that, and then along with, it's not super new anymore, but the, part of a DOT project, I assume, but with the kind of repaving and restriping of Dawson and McDowell right outside the door here, with that road diet, I know that has those two streets have kind of been a thorn in the side of many Raleigh residents for many years, including many members of this commission, former and current. And so I just wanted to kind of acknowledge that, while progress and change can frequently seem excruciatingly slow, there are things, these bigger lift items that have kind of been many months and years in the works. We're kind of starting to finally see the tide turn on some of these projects. So just something to kind of think about.
Thank you, Mr. Caruso. Any further comment? Mr. Smith?
Yeah, I was hoping to see if I could get an update, if we could get an update on the exit from 440 West onto Six Forks Road. I don't know, I don't remember exactly what date it was that I heard that was going to have some attention paid to it. But I was just there last week, and it's the same as it was. So I was wondering if you had an update on what was going on there, or could get us one next time.
Yes, we'll bring back an update from the Vision Zero team at our next meeting in November.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comment? Hearing none, seeing none, we'll move forward with upcoming events, and I think that Ms. Godwin did in fact just share one. We have the Transportation and Treats event coming up Sunday, or I'm sorry, it's a Wednesday, the 30th, at Marsh Creek Community Center from 4 o'clock till 7. Would love to see all of you out there. Any other events from the commission? Hearing none, seeing none, we will proceed with a confirmation of our next meeting, November 18th, 2024, 6 o'clock, right here in the council chambers. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.